Madrid wears its crown in stone and marble. Palaces, statues, a history carved into every square. The king is everywhere, yet nowhere. A symbol carried through centuries, but in today's Spain, does the crown still matter? Some see pride, others see a relic. And standing here in the heart of Madrid, I can't help but wonder, does Spain still need a king?
For centuries, kings were more than men. They were guardians of empires, arbiters of war and peace. They held the weight of nations on their shoulders. But nowadays, the crown is lighter, and the king no longer rules. So what does it mean to keep a monarch when the throne has no longer power? Does Spain still need its king, or only the memory of one? Nowadays, the situation here in Spain is a bit difficult. Spain is divided. There are separatist movements, for example in Catalonia, that claim to no longer need a king in Spain or to even want to separate themselves from Spain and the crown. Some people see it as necessary, but others feel that it is not really needed anymore for the government. But to better understand the current situation here in Spain a bit better, let me explain you how the role of the king evolved over the last centuries.
In the 8th century, the first kings ruled over territory that nowadays is Spain. But I don't want to go back this far in time. I want to start with the age of empire that started with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella in the late 15th century. After the voyage of Christopher Columbus, Spain became a global empire in the 16th century. At that time, kings were absolute rulers. They controlled politics, colonies, religion, and military. But the Napoleonic invasion in 1808 weakened the Spanish crown. Spain was forced to accept Napoleon's brother as king, sparking a brutal guerrilla war. The resistance movement inspired one of the first liberal constitutions in Europe, but when Ferdinand VII returned, he abolished it and restored absolutism, leading to a century of political turmoil. The Napoleonic invasion shook Spain to its core. The monarchy lost legitimacy. Across the Atlantic, colonies seized the moment and declared independence. By the time Spain reacted, much of its empire was gone. Spain was left devastated, economically ruined, and politically unstable.
In the 20th century, King Alfonso VIII was forced into exile, and the Second Spanish Republic was declared. Under Franco's dictatorship, the monarchy was abolished. But after Franco's death, Juan Carlos I was named king, and he led Spain into democracy. He was the grandson of Alfonso VIII. In 1978, a new Spanish constitution was declared, and Spain was declared a parliamentary monarchy. And that is what it remains until today. Spain remains a monarchy, and you might think that the king has unlimited power, but that is definitely not the case. The power that the king used to have during the Age of Empire is long gone. The modern role of the king is rather symbolic. He is the head of the state, but the political power is held by the president of Spain, while the king's function is really only symbolic and diplomatic. I can't help but wonder if the king of Spain doesn't have that much power anymore. Why does Spain hold on to him? And even though the king nowadays doesn't have the power anymore that he used to have, he of course still lives like a king. And to better understand the history of the royal family here in Spain, we are about to enter the Royal Palace of Spain. It was built in the 18th century and it is the state residence of the royal family. However, under Juan Carlos I, the royal family moved to the outskirts of Madrid, where it's a little bit calmer and less touristic as well. This palace here is only being used for banquets and important events like receptions. Let's enter the palace now and we'll see, well, more historical places of Madrid and the royal family. It's super beautiful. It's very touristic, obviously, but absolutely stunning. You can see a lot of details pretty much everywhere. And I don't know where to look first because everything you see is just absolutely stunning. This is only the entrance hall, and even the roof is beautifully decorated with beautiful paintings, a lot of gold, a lot of red. I like it a lot. It's definitely worth it so far. It is a very important historical site, as this used to be the official residence of the royal family until the 19th century. But you can see all these people here. It's absolutely understandable that the king nowadays doesn't want to live here anymore. Also because here in the surroundings, we are in the heart of Madrid, it's always crowded and there's always lots of people and tourists here. It's absolutely impressive to walk through these huge wooden doors to see all the details. Like every room I've seen so far is just stunning. I don't have words to describe this, but honestly, it is way more beautiful than I had expected. Now this is how you imagine a palace, right? Behind me you can now see the thrones. One of them is for the king and the other one for the queen. There are statues next to them, and again this is a very beautiful room, rich in detail and in red velvet decorations and gold decorations everywhere.
The room is grand but intimate, designed to impress visiting dignitaries. Every detail communicates royal authority, Spain's imperial past, and the continuity of the monarchy. Even though the current king doesn't live here, the room still represents the ceremonial heart of the Spanish crown.
Historically, this room was used to hold official audiences and to receive foreign ambassadors. Nowadays, this room is only used for state visits and obviously for public tours. Even though a king doesn't have political power anymore, he probably still has his own ideology. And in general, a king can also vote. He's like every other Spanish citizen that has the right to vote. However, the current king, King Felipe VI, has never voted. And that is probably to avoid uncomfortable questions or to take a political side. Kings are usually more like mediators and they cannot publicly oppose a government, for example. And I definitely understand that, because as a king, you definitely have to take care about what you say and do. The question is a king really free? And I personally would say not really. Of course, a king lives an amazing life. I mean, he lives in a palace, he never has to worry about money or hunger or any problems other people have. But in general, he cannot choose his own path. He is born into a family and his story is basically written from the first moment on. It doesn't matter if he has any specific interest in, I don't know, medicine or law. If he wants to become a lawyer or anything, he won't be able to do so. He will be king. We tend to romanticize a little bit the life of princesses and princes, but the reality does look a little bit different. Now, what happens actually if a king does not fit into the royal image? Well, in general, it's the king's task to protect the royal image. If he cannot do so, there's only one option that he can take. A king can decide to not continue with his position anymore. If he does that, he loses all his official obligations and he will become a normal Spanish citizen. But he will probably still have some advantages from his former position according to laws and the agreements made. It actually happened before. The king that probably made most headlines worldwide is King Juan Carlos I. He was known for his parties and his love for women, and he abdicated in 2014 in favor of his son, who is nowadays King Felipe VI. He signed his abdication right here in this room in 2014, and he did so in order to improve the royal image and also to, well, basically do what the population of Spain wanted.
The king cost Spain around 8 million euros per year, a small sum in the national budget, but a large one when measured against trust. After the scandals of King Juan Carlos I, Spain's transparency questioned.
The monarchy in Spain dates back to medieval times. However, it is becoming more and more modern, and the abdication of King Juan Carlos I in 2014 is only one sign of the modernization. At that time, Juan Carlos I responded to public opinion. The Spanish wanted a republic because of, well, basically all of the taxes wasted by the king and all of the scandals. So Juan Carlos I responded with his abdication, something that during medieval times obviously would have never been possible. Besides that, the current king and queen, they live a bit more modern as well. King Felipe VI married nowadays Queen Letizia, who was a divorced woman and a journalist that he met through common friends. Again, something that in medieval times wouldn't have been possible. And they now have a daughter, and the daughter will be the first woman becoming the Queen of Spain. It used to be always the firstborn son that became King of Spain. But in 2005, they changed the succession laws and allowed equal rights for the female heirs.
Despite the modernization, for many the crown is already tarnished. Scandal and exile have cast long shadows. The king may still stand for unity, but unity is fragile.
I gotta be honest, when I started to do my research about the royal family in Spain, I always thought that royal families just cost a lot of money, and they definitely do. However, I definitely understand the function behind the royal family a bit better now, because I also realized that in Germany, my country, we actually have something similar, but that person doesn't have that special title of the king. So countries such as Germany and also Austria and Italy do have a president that doesn't really have political power. In the example of Germany, we do have the chancellor that has all political power and takes all the political decisions, but we also have a president. It's a person that represents the country, a state representative, so to say. He has a symbolic function. He also signs a few laws, but he really doesn't have any political power. I now definitely understand a little bit better the thought behind the royal family and also the function of the king. The monarchy of Spain is a very complex system. It has a long history and a lot of traditions that are rooted deeply in this country. And as always, there are arguments for the monarchy and arguments in contra. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to read them.
The king is no longer Spain's ruler, but he remains its symbol, a reminder of glory, of scandal, of unity, of doubt. In Madrid, the crown feels both timeless and fragile, admired by some, ignored by others. Perhaps Spain doesn't need a king, but perhaps it isn't ready to let him go either. And in that contradiction, the story of Spain continues.